So here to report on the upcoming general election, give you some just overview of where we're at in the elections department and the Office of the Recorder. Major deadlines to be aware of course, October 7th is the voter registration deadline, as always 29 days prior to an election. October 9th is when early voting begins. That is when voters may go into any of the satellite offices and vote early in person. That is also the day that ballots are set out to mail. For those who will be receiving a ballot in the mail, it will sometimes take a couple of days to get that ballot in your hand. We ask that you please be patient with us. If you have not received it by the following Monday, then please reach out to the Citizen Contact Center, 520-509-3555, and give us a call, and we can go ahead and start tracking that ballot. October 25th is the last day to request a ballot by mail. October 29th is the day that we would like you to get that ballot back to us. November 1st is the last day to vote early in person, and of course, November 5th is Election Day. Any questions and frequently asked questions can be found at the Pinal.gov Pinal Votes website. For those of you who don't know, yesterday was the National Voter Registration Day. A lot of interesting things happening around the county, encouraging people to make sure that their voter registration is updated, and if they're not registered to vote, we were present in a few facilities to make sure we could assist voters accomplishing this task. We also teamed up with the communications team, and they created these fabulous posters for us. They were put in satellite offices, public libraries, post offices, and then even some cities and towns have put them up as well. What's really great is the QR codes that you see on them will still, after the registration date, still be enabled so that people can register to vote, or if they want to review their voter information in the statewide portal. This Saturday is the deadline for UOCAVA ballots to be sent out. It is always E-45 days from an election. For this one, September 21st, we will set the bulk of them out on Friday. We do have 445 UOCAVA voters in Pinal County, and we then kind of hover over the system to see if any last-minute requests have come in, and those will go out on Saturday. For those of you who are not aware, we've done some PSAs on that, but UOCAVA is the Uniform Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act. That allows for anybody who is serving their dependents or even people like reporters who are serving abroad still have the ability, if they're American citizens, to vote in our elections. The UOCAVA system allows us to expedite that process. Some things to be aware of. We thought you, like us, like numbers. So it is interesting to look at voter registration growth. People always talk about, the ebbs and flows in voter registration coming into especially a presidential general election year. So we went and we did some statistics. In November of 2020, we had approximately, the number says 248,874. Right now, we're over 300,000 registered voters. And it is also interesting to notice that between a primary and a general election, there is usually an uptick of registrations. Some people don't like to play in the primaries, but they will then become interested in a general election. So we do always see that influx between those two different styles of elections. We are currently receiving a high volume of calls. Again, I always want to encourage voters to please reach out to our offices, reach out to the Citizen Contact Center, the voter registration office, early voting, the elections department. We love being civically engaged with our voters. But these two questions have been coming in more frequently, and I think it's important to address them. Are Pinal County's voter rolls being properly reviewed and updated? If you've heard me speak, we don't do it yearly. I don't do it quarterly. We do it daily. We are required to maintain our lists. Recently, we received funding from the legislature, and we were able to send updated postcards. We did bulletin boards going into the elections, and all of this then also works with the the postal system to ensure that we are maintaining our rolls, our voter rolls. And then, we want to always make sure that people who are eligible to vote have the ability to vote. We also want to make sure that people who shouldn't be voting aren't. And that all comes in with clean voter rolls. So these are the ways that we do it. Of course, there are laws that have been put in place over the years to ensure these processes are clean, secure, and that we are following the law in the state of Arizona. Some things that you guys need to be aware of. They're going into any election cycle. There is a multitude of mailers that are presented to voters, to the point where sometimes they become a little bit numb to the information that they're receiving. So if you see the Pinal County logo or the Pinal Votes logo, I'd like people to pause and look at the information. Due to some changes in legislation, specifically to Title 16, ARS 16163, now we are required to inform a voter anytime we touch their record and a change is made. So what we're going to do is send them a postcard and let them know that something came in, we updated their record, and they can go to these websites to check it. Because in the event it wasn't them, we want to make sure they have an ability to, in a fast pace, rectify that situation. Some other things in regards to documented proof of citizenship, we recently sent out about 1,200 mailers to voters who were currently listed as Fed voters. The reason for that is, who doesn't want to be a full ballot voter and be engaged locally in their local elections? So I think it's a really great idea to prompt them. So we sent the mailer out to let them know what they needed to do to become a full ballot voter. Also, under the recent changes with the courts, we are now sending out letters when somebody tries to register to vote and they haven't shown documented proof of citizenship. Again, we can send a letter and let them know what they need to do to update the state form and then provide documented proof of citizenship. This is not from the Office of the Recorder. Again, voters are going to be receiving multitudes of these type of mailers. Everybody's interested in getting everybody updated to register to vote. Some of these mailers come from out of the state. Some of them come from in the state. Some of them from your local party people. The big thing is to remember to please review the information that is on the inside of them. Sometimes they have been pre-filled. So we would like, again, for voters to pause, review the information that's on the inside before they ever turn it back in. And remember, we will never ask you for money to update your voter registration. I didn't know that County Manager Lou was going to play the video that he played earlier, but his timing was impeccable. Unfortunately, in what we do in the elections world, we receive, like you heard, some love letters. I don't know a nicer way to put it. Some ugly calls, and unfortunately, now in the state of Arizona, we have received these type of mail. It has been received across many states in America. It was sent to a physical address, not P.O. boxes. It's consistent with previous attempts that we as election officials have seen when they try to submit suspicious substances to our offices. Please know that the Office of the Recorder, the Elections Department, our Threat Liaison Officer, the Office of Emergency Management, the County Board of Supervisors, and County Management take this extremely seriously, to include having done in-depth training with our staff. Right after we received the uptick in this information, we sent out the video that we had created with the Office of Emergency Management and Threat Liaison Officer to staff to remind them to ever be vigilant. And know that we do follow strict protocols in identifying these parcels, and then, of course, all the multitudes of training. Voter outreach events. We had voter registration day yesterday. Our team is out, boots on the ground, making sure people are aware of the upcoming election, giving them trusted information about our election processes. And those in the community that would like to have the voter outreach van at an event can do so by going to the Pinal County Votes website. And here's just some of the events this week. Well, we recently worked with the party chairs, the Elections Department, Office of the Recorder, early voting and voter registration side to make sure that we had a conclusive form that is a one-shot form for anybody who is going to be a political observer in our spaces in the upcoming general election. What it does is it allows people to understand what the level of expectation is going to be when you're in our spaces. You are in a secured facility. We do ask for a certain level of distance just to make sure we're protecting the ballot and also our staff. But of course, these are the voters' elections. They need to be a part of these processes. And if, they're constantly being kept at arm's length, it's a little bit difficult to understand those processes. So we want them engaged in our process, again, establishing trust through transparency. And these forms have gone out to the party chairs, people interested in being a political observer in our spaces, that is during early voting, the provisional ballot process, central tabulation on election night, or even, through some of the other processes. We ask that you reach out to your party chair. They're the ones who can credential political observers only. Some of the places that you will see political observers and voting going on, of course, are at these locations where our satellite offices are. This is the Votes Building, our Casa Grande office, Mr. Miller, our Santan Valley Recorder's office, where Mr. Goodman's staff is, Apache Junction and the complex with Mr. Surtees' area is, of course, Maricopa, where Supervisor Kavanaugh is, and, of course, Florence here, Mr. McClure. We have many locations for drop boxes in Pinal County. These, again, on recorded surveillance on county-owned property. We recently had individuals from the Saddlebrook area reach out and ask if we could, in an expeditious manner, put a ballot drop box out there. Currently, the only place where I have that we could put the recorded surveillance on county property is at that Oracle Justice Court. The area that we currently have a PCSO office is a leased facility, and so that means we have other obstacles. So we're going to work with that community to see if we can't do an outreach event to be able to work with them in the future. Again, it is a reminder to voters, Pinal County, by direction of the Board of Supervisors, is a precinct-based voting model. That means voters must go to their reported precinct on election day to vote at the polls. This is from an extract from the Elections Department website showing the list. If you're an Excel person, you can print the list and hand it out to your friends. Or you can even engage in the interactive map. And this is kind of a snapshot of that GIS system where you put in the upper right-hand corner your address, and then it tells you where your allocated voting location is. And of course, you can then enact some of the layers, which I think is pretty cool, and shows you what you're able to vote for there. And of course, elections means we need poll workers. Poll worker training will start here on the September 28th. We've been working vigorously to get to a really great training module. We actually will do Train the Trainer this Friday. And we're working to ensure that we have bipartisanship at all of our voting locations. That is our main direction. Of course, we want everybody to be involved in the process, and they can be, but wanting to make sure we have that balance between the two major parties at the polling locations of poll workers is absolutely required. This is a snapshot of some of the statistics that we've got currently for these polling locations. Election planning. Again, election planning isn't just every 4 years, right before a general presidential election. We start this process at least a year in advance. Many thanks to the Office of Emergency Management for assisting us in coordinating our biweekly meetings. We meet with department heads consistently to identify all the resources have been captured, and that we're working as a team for free, fair, legal, accurate, safe, and secure elections. We have submitted our emergency tabulation plan and continuity of operations plan to the Secretary of State as required. Logic and accuracy testing for our machines will be on September 27th. That's our internal one. We take it kind of a step further. We're required to do a certain amount for the Secretary of State's office, which will be October 3rd, but we'll be testing over 4,000 ballot styles. For the general election, we have 275 voting style or ballot styles on this election. And one of the things that people always ask is, when are the quarterly reports coming out? For after the voter registration deadline, we get a few days to make sure we're up to date with everything that's come through the portal. And of course, the mass amount of paper voter registration forms. I believe when I left the office this morning, our chief registrar let us know we were at about 1,200 that we were processing just today. So we get caught up on that, and then sent them to the Secretary of State's office, wait certification, and then those reports will go out to the party chairs. We're at about 90% of election cycle temps. What is that? Why aren't we at 100%? Well, just as soon as you are about to onboard somebody, they have a life change and they go in another direction. So we're going to be working vigorously to make sure we fill that position. As I left, we were already working on some of our on-the-job training with our election cycle temps. Poll worker teams have been identified and will be presented to this Board of Supervisors at our next meeting. It's always a great thing to tell you when you're on schedule. So all deadlines with our vendors have either been met or exceeded, to include our ballot design and layout, election programming, test decks, sample ballots, tablecloths, publicity pamphlets, and our voter extract file went out to our vendor this Monday. There's a lot going on in the world of elections, and some who follow us in our social media know that there is a lot of activity in the elections department last week. I want to reassure voters that we communicate with this Board of Supervisors, with the county manager, with our city and town stakeholders, with the political party, and with voters every day, whether it be via text or email, phone calls, or being out and about in our communities. This is a daily occurrence, folks. It would be remiss for me not to mention an event that occurred yesterday. So those of you who follow the nightly news may have understood that we were informed by the Secretary of State's office yesterday that an issue stemming from a data information with the Motor Vehicle Division was caught by the election official at the County Recorder's Office in Maricopa. Litigation has been filed between Recorder Richer and the Secretary of State's office. The biggest thing to understand at this is that we're going to work with the Secretary of State's office and to ensure that voters at no point are compromised in this situation. We've already worked with our council to ensure that a letter has been sent to request access to the the list of voters that may have been implicated in this scenario, and that as soon as we have that list, we'll be working very closely with the voters of Pinal County to ensure that, again, we have free, fair, safe, accurate, legal elections, and that there is no chance that they are missed in any situation. Gentlemen, I thank you for your time.